key insights, emerging trend, and experience in conversation with Manmohan Singh. A very brief about Manmohan Singh. Manmohan Singh is head of Aspirational Bharat Collaborative, an initiative by Piramal Foundation, and he is also a co-founder of Kevalya Education Foundation. Aspirational Bharat Collaborative is an initiative of Piramal Foundation in partnership with Niti Aayog. It aims to build hyper-collaborative with local NGOs, volunteers, SHGs, panchayat, media, faith leaders to improve lives of 180 million people living in 112 aspirational districts across 26 states in India. Manmohan believes in bringing together Sarkar, Samaj, and Bazaar at panchayat, block, and district level to leverage each other's strength for collective impact. Manmohan is co-founder of Kevalya Education Foundation. He works across states to improve quality education through system transformation. KEF also runs Gandhi Fellowship Program, and we have a Gandhi Fellowship alumni with us today who will join us to share her learning around working with government. Yeah, so we have Ishrat Jahan. She is South Asia lead at 1T.org World Economic Forum. She has a decade-long experience in policy, governance, and administrative reform spanning diverse sectors. She is an alumnus of London School of Economics and Political Science, Tata Institute of Social Science, and Delhi University. She was awarded Atlantic Fellowship for Social and Economic Equity. Her primary focus area has been education and land reform, and one of the very notable instincts she had was with Tribal Development Department and Higher and Technical Education Department of Maharashtra, School Education Department of Haryana and Madhya Pradesh, as well as Ministry of Labor and Employment in Delhi. She holds the position of South Asia lead, and she is on a mission for Trillion Tree initiative of the forum to accelerate nature-based solution, and was set up to support the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration 21 to 2030. Really glad to have you, Ishrat, with us. And the webinar will be moderated by Archana. She's director at ILSS. Archana experience have focused on learning and development across corporate, government, and social sector. She has worked as a city director at Teach for India. Prior to Teach for India, Archana has worked with Infosys Leadership Institute and Boston Public School in the area of human capital, change management, and diversity and inclusion. She is an alumna of Harvard Graduate School of Education and Tapai Management Institute, Manipal. And at the core of the work across all role and teams, her passion is for unleashing human potential in all. Really glad to be in this space. And Archana, over to you to give a brief about ILSS and then formally start the webinar.
Sure. Thanks, Hemant. And Hemant was kind enough to introduce all of us. Several of you are participants, alumni of the ILSS network, and so always good to reconnect with participants of our network. Several new people as well, and that's really why we do ILSS online, focused on learning for the sector. Hemant himself is also a Gandhi Fellow alumnus, and so we're very delighted to be able to do this talk today in partnership with Piramal Foundation, where we've had multiple ways of partnering and collaboration. And this is yet another direction in yet another effort in that direction. So I'm going to take a little bit time to anchor this in overall ILSS, what we do. And this is really for people who might have just signed up for this as the first time and they're like, okay, what does ILSS do? For all of our participants and alumni, this is a refresher and an opportunity to commit and connect with the larger ILSS family and network that you're part of. So when we think about the social sector, there are different types of organizations, right? Very often we think about grassroots interventions, which are organizations that people very often know of, right? So whether it's the fellowship organizations like the Gandhi Piramal, the organizations like Pratham, CRY, Swadesh Foundation, there are also organizations that work at different levels and in different ways to be able to create impact. So whether it's the research organizations like the Cancer Research Institute, whether it's organizations like eGov, Niti Aayog, which are looking at systemic change, as well as institutions and academic universities like Ashoka University, the social sector today is not a uniform, it's diverse in terms of different types of institutions, right? So for us, the idea is about how do we really strengthen the social sector, which is catalytic to India's development. Next slide. And so when ILSS was born 5 years ago, it was this belief that ultimately there are many things that can go right for an organization. However, the critical factor is really talent, right? And so while there could be multiple factors, ILSS was born to really focus on leadership and people, human capital as a lever to be able to unleash the impact. And so these are some stats that several of you might have seen, right? Which in a nutshell told us, reinforced how leadership development is really important, told us how very often there are no funds or there's a paucity of funds to be able to focus on this. And we also learned that over the last decade, there's been a lot of really good talent at the entry level and middle level that's happened in India due to the various fellowships and various initiatives. However, the senior leadership talent was still a gap, right? And so we said, what can ILSS really do for that? And that's how ILSS was born. And so our vision 2030 is to be India's finest institution for leadership development in the social sector to spearhead nation building. Very often the way we look at it is that all of you are doing the very critical work of focusing on areas of education, health, gender, child rights, environment, and so on and so forth. And we are here to think about you and your organizations to be able to strengthen it. Next slide. So a little bit of today, you're coming into the ILSS online, which is an effort of ours for knowledge creation for the wider sector. Most often what we are known for is our core learning programs for both corporate audience as well as for social sector leaders. And the network building, which is something that we truly, truly believe in, which is what's the learning and collaboration that we can enable for and with one another. So that's a little bit overview of what we do. So the chances are either you've been part of this one of these programs, you know somebody who's gone through this program, or you potentially hired people from this program. So these are some of the programs that we've done over the last 5 years. And the aim as we go, and today we're very happy and we're very pleased and grateful to have a community of over 700 leaders who've been with us on this journey of leadership and learning. And so where are we as we look ahead is really the ILSS 2.0, as we are calling it, where we're double clicking on some of the elements around communities and knowledge to widen from the core learning and development to build on it to what we call the centers, starting with 3 centers at the beginning: the Center of Excellence on Fundraising, on Leadership, and Board and Governance. And so what we hope to see in 2030 is, today we are 700 leaders strong. We will, by 2030, have over 4,000 leaders from the social sector and within the sector, and close to 1,400 sectors who we would have worked with from the corporate sector. The idea is that we grow this tribe and together we do more and better. So that's our journey. And so today what we're going to do as part of this ILSS online is, the way we think about ILSS online is, what are some topics and themes that is on a lot of people's mind, right? And they could be either across our programs, across our alumni, across our wider network. What are some things that people are thinking about as challenges, as opportunities? And today we're super excited to be talking with Manmohan Singh and one of his alumni from the Gandhi Fellowship to really understand the behind the scenes of what does it take to work with the government and what's been the journey over time and what have they seen and what are we seeing collectively. So we'll start by hearing a little bit about this Aspirational Bharat Collaborative, which is something that's happening today. It's aspirational and it's something more for the future. And I'm sure that there's a lot that has happened to be able to even do something like this today, right? So we'll hear a little bit about Manmohan's current role and then unpack what are lessons from his journey in terms of collaboration and working with the government over the decade and more. And then hear from our practitioner, Ishrat Jahan, who's an alumna of the Gandhi Fellowship and has worked with the government across district, state, and the center in various roles, to again hear from her on what is what is her experience like, and what are some lessons from that? We will start off with a few questions based on what we've heard as major questions on several people's mind, and really, really open up the space for a lot of questions from this for people attending today. So that's the larger context. I'll pause and bring Manmohan in. Welcome, Manmohan and Ishrat. Super delighted to be in conversation with both of you. Manmohan Singh, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about this Aspirational Bharat Collective, and I know you have a few slides for us as well. The community attending today is very curious to hear about not just what it is today, but also all that's gone into being able to do something like this today. So would love to hear an overview on that and then go from there.
Namaskar, everyone. Thank you, Archana, for inviting for the session. I hope everybody is comfortable with Hindi and English. My mother tongue is Hindi, so I have habit to go back to Hindi because that's where I am trying to express better. But I'll try to speak both in Hindi and English. Ankur, if you can put the deck. In 2017, Government of India thought through that if India has to grow, how do you focus on the most backward district of the country? And there has been multiple program, in last few decades about backward district development. 2017 is when government chose 117 districts out of 700 plus districts based on the indicator of Human Development Index, and called it, instead of calling it backward district, called it aspirational district, right? Just to change the narrative. And that's where we started working as a foundation, because we also had a model district as a unit of change, which we had experimented before 2017. When we went to these districts, we realized that the problem of these districts, like, I don't know how many of you know, Jaisalmer is one district in Rajasthan that is bigger than Kerala in geography. But you only have 3 administrative blocks. Imagine a teacher who has to travel just to the block headquarters for certain work. Imagine a life of a ASA who is a frontline worker in health. How they are living their life to improve services by the government, right? Or the 35 very deep forest left-wing extremist district. Imagine a district in Manipur, Chandel, which has a large border area, international border, and the administration is quite occupied in those. Imagine the districts in Bihar, UP, and Assam, which is flooded almost 4 months every year. So entire administration is just busy managing the flood. You and I might be working in health, education, livelihood, and believe that, why they are not moving, but they are busy saving life. So I think based on that, we were working, and that's where this whole Aspirational Bharat Collaborative started. Earlier, we were working as a program, to improve learning outcome or improve health outcome. But then we realized that I don't think it can be solved by any one organization, any one sector. And therefore, it required larger collaboration with Sarkar, Samaj, Bazaar, and Sanchar, and maybe many more. And we realized that if you have to actually look at, this is a democratic country, government is supposed to deliver, right? The quality services, that's the expectation we have. And the decentralization is something, is extremely critical for democracy to thrive. And therefore, how do we look at the last mile and improve that which is led by women and youth? That's where we started this collaborative. And that in these districts, you have around 16 to 20% population. And this is various because you don't have the latest census, right? If India has to achieve its goal of being developed country or being top 3 economy, if these population does not improve their human development index, will we ever achieve our aspiration? Next, Ankur. And therefore, we are, these are our belief that, human nature is fundamentally good. That's where we are coming from. And every individual has an intrinsic capability, to take care of their own well-being. And therefore, our belief is that the precursor to system change is individual change. And this is just an example, of a couple, right, who wants to access a family planning services, right? And this couple, start with, मैंने सुना है कि परिवार नियोजन का चीजें PHC में मिलेगा, right? That's what it. Then goes to PHC and then there is a myth that सुना है परिवार नियोजन में नसबंदी करनी होती है. Therefore, that creates a lot of fear in the individual and the couple. When one goes to the PHC, they hear that, okay, आपको आंगनवाड़ी जाना पड़ेगा, आपको district headquarter जाना पड़ेगा. But when they have conversation with the frontline worker, which is आशा दीदी, right? तो उनको पता ही नहीं था. उन्होंने बताया कि आप जिला अस्पताल जाओ. So when you go to जिला अस्पताल, you say that किससे बात करूं? कोई तो इसके बारे में, कॉन्डम के बारे में बात नहीं करना चाहता. उसके अलावा और क्या चीजें उसके बारे में बात ही नहीं होती है. जब आशा दीदी से बात होते हैं तो वो खुद शर्मा रही है इसको बातचीत करने में. So what do I do? And when that person goes to the next and next and it continues. And therefore, if you look at this as multiple problem, right? This is not a one problem. And therefore, this is a wicked problem. And one problem, if you want to solve cultural and religious belief, right, it is not going to solve all the problem. Or if you're designing any program in isolation, this will not give you the right result. So this is the first understanding that this is a wicked problem we are trying to solve. And therefore, we looked at saying that if you go to the next and see what is the next step we have, right? The citizen. Why citizen is not able to take decision by themselves? Because they are heavily dependent, right, on somebody else's, from the government side, because they don't have the knowledge. Therefore, they are not able to participate. They are not taking decision, and therefore there are a lot of dependent of in the government, and this creates a lot of huge trust gap between Samaj and Sarkar. And therefore we looked at what are the barrier we have, which is coming in between. Who are influencing these individuals? The couple which I talked about, how are they being influenced? These are some of the community leaders we have identified, whether it is Sarpanch or local NGO, local youth, faith leader, local media, self-help group. They are one who are influencing the community. And if you go deeper into each one of them, there are intent, but they don't know how to support. So if you look at Sarpanch has intent. Right? Chandana Devi is from Dumka, Jharkhand. If you have conversation with her, she has a huge intent and she really wants to do something good. But she is going pillar to post about the information कि मेरे 5,000 citizen है मेरे पंचायत में, तो I don't even know the information किसको कौन सी स्कीम मिलनी चाहिए, किसको मिल चुका है, किसको कब तक मिलेगा. For that she will have to run from this department to that department and may not be able to get the right information. Right? Local NGOs, right? They have intent, they want to work, but again they are struggling with the money. They are not able to raise money because they are not compliant. They are not able to present the way I'm presenting to you in very articulate manner in English or the language you want. Therefore, collector is not respecting. But if you really want to do behavioral change so that girls continue to be in the school and doesn't drop out of the school, right? And therefore she doesn't go through the early marriage, early teenage pregnancy, therefore anemia and malnutrition, right? How do you solve this? So like that, we looked at who are influencing them, and these are the variety of leaders. And when we go to the next, look at that, therefore, what do you do now? And we summarize these problems that are there enough platform. So there are lack of platform at the last mile, and lack of alignment between multiple stakeholder. And because there is no alignment, capability is also an issue. That how do you build capability, right? Information problem is anyway there. They don't have right information. And all this creates lack of trust and credibility. And again, if we go to the next, if this is the problem, then how do we solve it? These are the two approaches we have. One is, how do you create hyper-local collaborative, which is at the panchayat level and at the block level, at the district level. This is not at the national level and global level. Very, very hyper-local, right? Who understand jungle, jameen, jaat, pani, jhagda, right, of that village, who understand the history, understand the food, understand the politics, right? Can you bring those people together and look at the SIFT? Today, they are seen as a recipient of services by the government, right? Can you shift that to co-creation of solution, right? And what it takes to do that, and therefore the purpose-driven change will be required. That's on the left side. If you look at the right side, it is a last mile convergence between departments. Today, reality is that all government are designed based on domain. That's how it is structured. Education department, within education department, further sub-domain, right? Primary, secondary, teacher development, right? NGOs are also designed like that. I'm health, you are education, somebody else is something else, right? But citizens are not divided like that. The same women, I go and say that, आप बच्चे को स्कूल में भेजो. Same women, somebody else go and saying that बच्चे को ये खिलाओ ताकि उसका न्यूट्रिशन बेटर हो. Same women that, goat कि आप रखोगे तो आपका लाइवलीहुड ऐसा होगा या एग्रीकल्चर में ये होगा. So can we shift from department defined goal to citizen centric goal through last mile convergence? Again, this is not convergence equal to one letter. There are many letters which gets written and policy which is get written, that convergence is critical. But last mile at a sarpanch, and that these two approaches, if I go little deeper, Ankur, if you can click on the left one, these are the 6 one. And at the moment, we have around 1,200 local NGO, very, very small NGOs, part of our collaborative for last 2 years, from Kerala, Wayanad in Kerala, to Buxa in Assam, to Bara in Rajasthan, to Baramulla in Jammu Kashmir, right? Across length and breadth of the country. And they have come together for purpose. Again, that everybody has a similar purpose. Unfortunately, we get divided into us and them. Similarly, if we look at the young people, we're trying to partner with the local colleges at the block level. College professor, college student trying to solve something independently, and administration trying to solve something independently. Can we bring them together? Now, policy enables it. National education policy enables it. But we are trying to bring them together. There is the one platform. There is a national services scheme, Nehru Yuva Kendra, like that. But can you create a platform to bring them together? Similarly, if you look at faith leader, we are trying to bring faith leader together, because they are seen as a divider or only promoter of religion. But our experiences are very, very different. That they can build consensus in the society. And there are enough examples that how they have been able to do it. If you look at Panchayat, the way they are working is enormous. 14 Finance Commission, 15 Finance Commission has given a lot more power, administrative and financial. I met one Sarpanch in UP, Sonbad district in Hayaghat village. This person, with proudly takes me to the school, and he has built a school which visibly looks like one of the best school in the region. And he says, आपको पता है, मैंने पूरी जिंदगी पुलिया और रोड बनाया. पुलिया is bridge. That I have been building bridges and roads. But समाज को बनाना है, if you have to build the society, it's better to invest in health and education. So like that, this is what we are trying to build at the last mile. And that's what we are calling it collaborative. And similarly on convergence, if you look at, convergence again, we are saying that how do you build structure? So, I asked a Sarpanch in Nandurbar district, one of the village, saying that how many government workers are working in your community? And he said, Honge 25. So I started asking him and I started noting down there were 80 people in his panchayat working from government. I asked him, have you called a meeting? Well, my meeting kyun bulaunga? Right? And there was a collector, Dr. Rajendra there, very, very dynamic collector, has done fantastic work. With him, we started working. And, in one of the village, there were a lot of unemployment. And we said, what can we do about it? He said, Pata nahi kya karenge. It is on Narmada Valley, right? Skill department had 1.5 crore left, right? Money, unspent money. Forest department wanted to do some nursery work, but they were struggling because panchayat was not aligned. Like that, so team went to first skill ministry, said that can we spend this on this village? Panchayat agreed to give land. Forest agreed to give some money, to start the nursery. So 5-6 department came. It generated 500 employment for 3 months, and it generated livelihood for 5 to 10 people for next 3 years, just because of bringing people together. Right? Can we build structure? Can we build cadence? Just ensuring meeting happens. In Gaya district, one of the panchayat, the institutional delivery was 12%. Just because panchayat started bringing all last mile person together from various departments, somebody gave ambulance, somebody gave mandate that मैं collector से लिखवा के लाऊंगा, right? Somebody started saying that I will set up the information system, and institutional delivery went up to 80% in 6 months. So how do we build capability? How do we build usage of data, to ensure that convergence happens? And so this is what we are trying to do. And through this, if you look at, our work is across multiple domains. So if, Ankur, if you can go to the quickly, let's remove all this. Yeah, the number. How we have been able to impact multiple sectors through this collaborative. Next, Ankur. Yeah, so if you look at these 25 districts, 125,000 children, dropped out children came back to school. There were, learning outcome improvement happened. And this happened because of government and community coming together. This did not happen because we as an organization were there. Next, similarly, during the COVID, the amount of work we were able to do around multiple things, whether it was health work or working with the Surakshit Dada Dadi Nana Nani Abhiyan. We worked with the senior citizen who were completely left out in these districts, or, vaccine hesitancy, or for the girls in education, because they had suffered the most. There were domestic violence, there was sexual harassment, and how these communities and government came together to be able to support them. So we can get into these details, but I think the whole purpose is how do you build hyperlocal collaborative, and how do you bring Sarkar and Samaj together and slowly bring bazaar for investment in these districts. By the way, these population of these districts is around 16% to 20%. CSR investment is less than 2%, which is less than the Pune district alone. That's the situation we are trying to work in. Yeah, thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Manmohan. That was incredible, just trying to wrap our mind around all the complexity of things that are possible, and yet really appreciate how you broke it down to say what are some of the key pillars for it. In fact, my first question is going to be to double click on that, right? You spoke about structures, capabilities, and building data usage as 3 cornerstones to be able to do this. Which one was easy and which one was tougher? And because I'm sure that this is also based on the work Piramal Foundation has been doing over time, right? So for this initiative, as you started, was one easier than the other, and what was the reasons for that? What they all had?
Yeah, none are easier. It is difficult. It's painful. It takes long time. So none are easier. You solve one, new problem gets created. As long as I think we understand this is a wicked problem and it will not be solved through just one intervention, I think we will continue to improve.
Yeah. So give us an example of it, right? So in terms of, so let's say out of these three, how does it work in terms of you start with one where there is where there is some progress, or you start with what's like really staring at you
Yeah.
as the biggest challenge. What, just give us an example on how one's there, then how the other two connect.
So I think it starts with belief, Archana. It doesn't start with the framework. Framework comes much later. Do you believe that the government, enabling government is what you want to do? Or do you want to create a parallel structure? These are choices individual and institution have to make. We have made a choice that we will never ever create parallel structure. We will only work to enable government since the day we are born. Right? First, that belief. Do you want to enable? Two, lot of people ask that, transfer हो जाएगा, political power change हो जाएगा, हो रहा है. Are you designing for that, or you are just, reacting to those? That is given, right? That this is how it happens. So, is my design agile or not? Or I'm thinking, what solution I believe has to be replicated. It will not work, right? Do I believe that people who are, maybe this is the right time to share some of the learning. Uncle, if you can put that one slide, that whatever our learning, in working with government at the session today.
Yeah, would love that.
So I think the first is, am I aware that this is a wicked problem, right? If you can click on that, Uncle. Yeah, put the full slide, please. Yeah. So there is no right or wrong answer, right, in a wicked problem. But am I making progress? That's a different question to ask. And problems are, it's never solved. You solve one and then the next problem starts, right? It is a multi-dimensional problem. I might be solving some pieces. Am I aware of this? This is the beginning. If I'm aware, then I'm doing the work, which is inner work and outer work. And inner, I'm calling, am I empathizing? Am I compassionate? Right? When I'm talking to a secretary, or I'm talking to a minister, or talking to a teacher or education official, have you imagined that if you have to do that job, right? You have been, appointed as district education officer yesterday, right? You might have done some other work in your life, and suddenly media comes and asks you 100 questions, or suddenly you have to go and appear in the court for a case which has happened in maybe 1970, and you're responsible for that, and you do not have a capable lawyer who can help you win this case. Have you imagined that if you are there, right? So are you doing that inner work when you're, trying to do something with government? And similarly, outer, which is do you understand the power structure, right? The hierarchy, what decision taken at what level, right? And not just the decision, it's not written decision. What is written? What is practice? So real, possible, and ideal, right? Have you invested time enough? And are you aware that where are you on that scale, right? And then I think transformation versus intervention is another one. Are you there for one project for a year or two, right? Which is funded, some donor has funded me to work with 100 school and give me 10% learning outcome. That is reality. I have to give that learning outcome if I'm committing to that. But am I just because of that? Then there is a different way to approach. Or are you there for social change, larger transformation? Right? If that happens, then the design changes. because your north stars are very, very different. And then I think the design for agility. We have divided us and them. मैं सरकार हूं और आप समाज हो, आप बाजार हो, या ये तो ब्यूरोक्रेट है, ये ऐसा ही होगा. Us and them versus co-creation. Are you listening enough? Right? And we can get into those, or it is a pseudo co-creation. There are times you pseudo co-create, or you want to reinforce that I have the best solution, I'll give it to you, and you just replicate and change will happen, right? And again, as I spoke, that design for ambiguity since beginning, whatever we are designing, it has to be inbuilt. That transfer होने वाला है, और कोई आएगा वो आपका प्रोग्राम को बंद करना चाहेगा क्योंकि उनकी समझ नहीं अलग है. So am I ready to listen and go through that process? Or I'm going to say that, oh God, now this happened, government is bad, right? And then are you slowly creating the champions inside the government? Because there are many, many people inside government who are doing more hard work than many NGOs, individuals. Many, right? And well-intended, capable people are there. Are you able to identify and build them as a champion? And once all this happens, then of course, what is it that I'm offering? Do I have some expertise I'm continuing to develop or not? And to know that which part of problem are you solving? I think this is a core for us, and therefore, if you don't have some of these, then my solution, I can't get attached to those three: build, structure, build, data, right? Because that will also change tomorrow based on the experience. Yeah. It's a dynamic system.
Definitely. This is super, super helpful, right? If we were to stay on this, Manmohan, you spoke a lot about working along with others. What has been your experience in working with partners on as part of this initiative? How do you identify partners? How has that been to work with them? Have you had to drop any partners along the way? Tell us a little more about that because we understand that it's not something that only one organization can do, right? And so,
Yeah.
what's been that approach and what's been some lessons on that journey?
So partner, are you again? The partner is government, and within government, then you will have a central government, state government, district government. Within government, who is government? Politically elected are also government. Bureaucrats are also government. Domain experts are also government. Right? Teachers are also government. Right? So if you get into that, municipal corporation is also government. And each of them have a different characteristic, right?
Mm,
Or then there is a partner, technical partner. Example, we have partnered with Think Equal. Think Equal is amazing in preschool curriculum. The way they have designed this, I don't think we can do it. We don't need to do it. I to reinvent, right? So you partner with technical partner, or in the corporate Genpact, their understanding of process, we cannot even imagine that what it takes to build those process improvement skills, right? They have done it, right? But that process improvement is required to ensure that every girl who is eligible to get scholarship is not getting that scholarship today, right? Because it's a dull, boring process, non-value added process are still there. So who is going to solve, right? We don't know how to solve it, but we know the context. So you build partnership with those type of people, right? Then you're building partnership with again technology. Now technology is critical, but we can never build our capability that how to design, right, technology. So there are people who understand how to do tech. So we're working with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they have global experiences, what is working in various parts of the world. Or we are working with the Indian technology companies to understand what it takes to design the technology, right? So the partners, so the first again belief is that we have to build the partnership, right? Whether you're working with the consulting firm who are able to articulate and help you in your strategy, or it is a deep technical expertise of how do you use theater as a tool for learning, or how do you use sports for life, right? That we don't know. So you partner with those organizations who have deeper expertise, right? And then I think you asked the second part of the question, that what works, what doesn't work. I think the value system is so important. It is not a transactional relationship here, because both partner goes through pain, and partnership has failed when we have not spent time that why we are coming together, and we quickly align saying, oh, give and take, just give and take. You look at what product you have, what product I have, and quickly you partner. Chances is it will work for 1 year, 2 year, but it will not be sustainable partnership, because your value systems are different, right? I believe that a government officers who is very cynical today, may be very angry, doesn't give you appointment, right? I believe that this person is very good. There is something else going on in her life or his life. And therefore, today, this is how my experience is. But I'm not going to go away. I will work with this individual. And there are 100 examples how this individual has become champion, who was extremely negative. But maybe you as a partner doesn't believe that. Why you are spending time and it is not efficient. So efficiency model may not work if you really want to cause the system change. Efficiency is important, but it takes time.
Well said. Thank you for that. If we double click on this government piece, right, a lot of our network organizations and leaders struggle with this big complex structure within the government, right? So there is the district, there's the state, there's the center, like what said, there's local panchayat, and then there's bureaucrats, and then there's the politician. What's been your learning in terms of how do we navigate this system? And is there, like, for organizations who are looking to who are on the journey of belief and saying, I want to be able to do this, but I don't know how to get started, what would you say?
I think it's again depend on which organization is this, who's the individual, and what is the purpose, right? I come from a state where there are lots of NGOs, but many NGOs are created because of unemployment. If 10 young people do not have anything to do, and some chacha, mama, mausi is in government or in corporate, नहीं कि तुम एक NGO चालू कर लो, कुछ प्रोजेक्ट दे देंगे, वो चालू हो जाता है, because it is coming from space of I will be able to do something positive, constructive. So many NGOs are like that, and therefore you look for how to get into government, right? First question, if your first question is कि government के साथ कैसे काम करेंगे, then there is a different approach. My experience is that what is the purpose? What is it that you want to do? Do you want to improve lives of tribal in Udaipur district? It could be as refined as that. Not even Udaipur, maybe Jhalod, one of the block of Udaipur, right? Or somewhere else, or within life. Life is again, what do you mean by life? Health indicator. Which health indicator? Tuberculosis, because TB is killing large number of people, or malaria. Or you want to ensure that girls complete the schooling. So do I know the purpose? And therefore say that this is what I want. And then I want to listen to the government. What is it that they're doing? Right? Government has multiple programs and schemes. Maybe I already understand what is a scheme. I have analyzed it and I have some insights. Right? But there are a lot of people say that I want to tell government because I have something to offer and they're not listening. The question is, have you listened to the government? Are you ready to listen? Because as soon as so there are a lot of myths, right? So if we don't deconstruct some of those, the approach may not be effective, right? And it is not a standard response, right? Standard could be around principles. That finally it's about an individual, right? A lot of people wants to, have been asking me, MOU कैसे होता है, partnership कैसे करते हैं? Now, MOU तो केवल paperwork है. I don't know how many people, if you sign MOU today, next person who joined after the guy who signed MOU, वो देखते भी नहीं है कि क्या लिखा है, until something wrong is done. right? So MOU just important things to do, but not sufficient. That doesn't build the partnership. You can sign a memorandum of understanding or a memorandum of partnership, but maybe you're treated like a vendor, like a road contractor. कि road तुमने बनाया नहीं सही से, right? It has happened with me. We have gone through all that, right? देखिए आपने रिपोर्ट नहीं दिया, इतनी बार से आपने रिपोर्ट नहीं दिया है, right? How dare you are not submitting report? And this was first 5 years, and it took at least 6-7 years for me to have courage and the vocabulary to push back to the government, saying that why should I give you report? Who are you? You're a government. We thought that we are a partner. I have given you 20, report, and there is not even say thank you or accepted or good you submitted. Nothing. So what am I validating? I am validating that you are my Baba and I will surrender to you. Right? So are we creating good spaces and relationship to understand the individual inside the government and their concern, their challenges, their frustration, right? If I do that, I will be able to listen and slowly be able to share what I'm feeling, right? And then it is about approach. And then there could be very mechanical thing, right? Saying that, okay, if I have to do, if there is a very specific problem, then based on that location, that specific problem, you can approach differently. You can approach, should you go to the state first or should you go directly to the district? Now it also depends on what is it that you want to do, right? Many times you need blessings from the state, but ultimately work will happen on the ground. And blessing is so they are aware. So you're leveraging, you're not creating parallel structure. Therefore, it is important to work with the state, right? But if there are, let's say you're working on 1% of the problem, which the state is trying to deal with, why will secretary spend time with you? Because her care is different. And she is not able to understand how you're adding value. If she is a good human being, which, wants to learn, she may give you time, but finally, it's up to the individual from both sides, right? So I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, that what is the approach? Approach depends on a lot of these things, right?
Sure, sure. Manmohan, we're going to take a step back and go to your journey through the over the years in the sector. And if you had to look back at the journey, what would you say were some key milestones in this journey, and how have that shaped who you are today as a leader?
I don't know whether I'm a leader or a worker, but I think my journey is, childhood. I think always that's who I am. I studied under a mahua tree in East India, Jharkhand. There is a district called Giridih and a block called Bagodar and a village called Tutuko. This village, had no road, no electricity, whatever backwardness you can imagine as the village. Uh, and 300 kids sitting under a tree with one teacher with a wooden chair and wooden table with a stick in his hand. The teacher was Lalji Misra, very I fond of him. He is no more. That's the school I went to. I have memory of 5 years together. There is no class memory, right? And the main job is that he was able to ensure that all children come on time and goes on time, and they are there. And when I went to the middle school, I was walking 4.5 kilometers one way to attend my middle school. And many classmates dropped out during walking this 4.5 kilometers. And as a child, you don't even bother about that. You just ask one question, वो क्यों नहीं आया? तो किसी को टीचर ने इतना मारा कि आजकल पुलिस स्टेशन में भी नहीं मारते, शायद वो मारेंगे तो सवाल आएगा। या फिर माँ बाप किसी की मौत हो गई तो वो नहीं आया, या फिर घर में खाने का नहीं है तो खेत में काम करना पड़ेगा। या फिर बहुत सारे दो इश्यूज विच वी हियर अबाउट सोशल इश्यूज, राइट? I used to get up in the morning with the मुर्गे की आवाज. But दूसरा आवाज था कि one neighbor, used to beat his wife every day, and she used to cry whole night, and nobody can ask question. His son used to gather courage to stop, but his father would bring a sword to attack. Uh, so, when I went to college, and that's when I started, thinking about these numbers. I realized that not even 2% of my classmates who were with me are able to earn livelihood today. Many died, right? It's a tribal area. And I used to hear as a child that, you need to have 6, 7 siblings because 2-3 तो मर जाएंगे बीमारी से, 1-2 देश के कारण मर जाएंगे और एक नालायक निकल जाएगा, ताकि एक बचेगा मिनिमम, ताकि माँ बाप के साथ फैमिली के साथ रह सके. That's the paradigm I come from. And when I was in college, I realized that I am speaking to all of you today. And in college, this was the realization that I'm here just by chance, nothing else, no capability, nothing. But many, 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 many people are suffering. What is it that I can do? And what I'm doing today is from that. So in the college, only I started looking at government as a servant. I used to walk into collector office, they are sitting just for me. I had no exposure that appointment lena hota hai, puchna hota hai. And people called me that this is activism. But immediately walk into the collector office, walk into whoever office, and have conversation, and did a lot of work during college. That's where this government thing started. And never thought about the career, never thought about what role I have to do. Went to WHO, worked there again with the government, WHO, UNICEF, and realized that the problem is not just in my village, it's everywhere. Uh, and what gets decided in Geneva, what decided at the New Delhi, and what happens at the district and block is very, very different. So I hit the ceiling very soon and realized that people told me you have a lot of passion, but you do not have a skill. So I tried to build some skills and I failed. But I thought at least let me continue to keep the passion as it is, if possible. So try to build some skills, and that's how I got into education. And since then, it has been just a journey working with the government. But there is a deep belief that we're a democratic country and government are there for citizens. And my brother or your sister or somebody in government and somebody else is in corporate, and we end up judging entire government, including your own family member who might be doing good work, right? So yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that. So inspirational. So it's hard to keep going on without just thinking about those lessons. Yeah, I think the this is something we see a lot when we talk to people who've been in the sector over time, right? How do we recognize the the promise and opportunity for India being the democracy? And what is our role? How much of it is by chance? How much of it is privilege? And what is our responsibility in this work? Um, Very, very deep insights. Thank you, Manmohan. In fact, I'll take one question that's come that's related, and then perhaps go double click on the Kaival, on the Gandhi Fellowship right after. There's a question from Amit on what would be your one or two advice for someone looking to move to the social sector and looking to contribute to the education sector, based on possibly your experiences with other folks who've transitioned?
Yeah, so I think you're asking two questions. The last one, that someone who wants to transition into social sector.
Yeah.
The first request I will have is please do not try to add value quickly. Please spend time, as much as time possible, just to listen to understand, not to react or respond. you will add value. There is no question. Please do not come with that. And I've seen people in last 10 years, a lot of people have come to our organization from corporate, from all kind of background. Those who have spent time to understand, are, went through a joyful journey. And those who wanted to add value, कि 3 महीना हो गया, I have to solve this. तो वो बहुत पेन क्रिएट करता है. And different people go through different journeys. So that's the only request I have, right? And then I think second is problem doesn't get solved overnight. It will take time, right? Because it is complex. It is a wicked problem. Lot of elements are there which is influencing what you and I want to solve. On the Gandhi Fellowship, I don't know what is the question. Are you saying why we started this?
Yeah, so what I would love to actually, so that I was going to go to that, and then I saw Amit's question, and I said, let's double click on that. And then we'll bring in our privileged alumni, Ishrat, as well, right? So tell us a little bit about how today Gandhi Fellowship is known to almost everyone, right? And so in your from your vantage point, Manmohan, what do you see as the role of the Piramal Foundation Kaivalya creating a cadre of young leaders who are today taking up working with the government at different levels, right? Both through the fellowship, and if we look at alumni, what do you see as the role in that, and creating this cadre of young leaders now for over a decade, doing some incredible work across layers?
Yeah. So I think you might be looking at what is role we have in this society. I mean, immediate response is that as an organization, we're thinking, what is it that we are contributing towards building India, right? Therefore, we have 4 words for that. We're trying to build leadership inside government. We're trying to bring digitization. We're trying to work on decentralization, and we are trying to do inclusion. And all these 4 through led by women and youth, right? Now, if I go to the question on Gandhi Fellowship, I think all the learning which I said, this could be just gyan. Many people do gyan. We are not good at giving gyan. We're learning slowly because we have been told many, many times, तुम लोग शेयर नहीं करते हो. पता नहीं है तो शेयर नहीं करते. मैं काम करने आता है. So I think our belief was when in 2008 is when we started. 2007 we had spent a lot of time thinking through. It's saying that in government, anybody who had joined government, they joined with all good intent and good purpose. It is difficult to get into government. That is also true, right? But because of situations, circumstances, experiences, some have become negative, cynical, right? Doesn't want to do much work because of experiences, not because they are bad people. They are not bad people. They're better than many of us, right? So the question was that how do you bring young energy into that cynicism, dull, boring administrative thing? Who is the better than young people, right? And you may have watched Three Idiots or Pathshala movie or Tare Zameen Pe. Those was those days movies, right? What is it that if a young person wants to do something, you're not able to do it? So I think that the genesis of Gandhi Fellowship is that today's young people aspiration is based on what market is pushing you to believe, right? Think that you have to go to IIM or Harvard or IITs and then get into the best job, have a best car, and live in the metros. You get all the facilities, right? That is the progress. How many people wants to become district education officer? If you go and ask in top 100 colleges, right? If you don't have that, then how do you solve the social problem, right? And this was this attempt saying that, as I said about, are you able to empathize? You will hear Ishrat, right? I salute Ishrat, right? How she has gone through her own journey, right? From college. Why she chose to come here? She comes from a, family of officers, right? And when she joined the fellowship, maybe I don't know how much fight she has done. I remember a little bit, but she had to fight with the family. नहीं मुझे ये करना है, जहाँ पे पैसा नहीं है, जहाँ पे एक एकदम unknown एरिया में, right? You are going to live with the community. With the believe कि कोई ईव टीजिंग नहीं होगा, with the belief कि लोग अच्छे हैं, right? Security. And can you create that? And when you hear Ishrat, right, her experience of government is very, very different. So if you have a cadre of people who believe that people are good, who believe that change is possible, who can create hope and continue to cultivate that, that is an attempt, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of other people are building skill. Maybe Gandhi Fellow may not have the best skills in the world, but finally, you need good heart. You
Yeah.
need compassionate people who
Yeah.
believe in other people and therefore bringing people together for a same purpose.
And who better than to hear from Ishrat herself? Ishrat, thank you so much for joining us. And as we were having conversations ahead of the webinar, one of the things that we were talking about was Ishrat was saying how she'd worked with the government in different capacities for so long that sometimes people would be like telling her that you are also government only now, Ishrat. And so, Ishrat, tell us, how has been your journey over time, and what are some lessons in the journey? Just because it's one to see it from the outside, right? And then for you to have been in this, to have lived in the community, to have worked at the district level, you've worked with different states and with the ministry in Delhi. And what is it like? What's been that journey like for you?
Hi, Archana, and thank you, Manmohan, for that powerful presentation as well as discussion. And I must start by saying that yes, the conversion has happened. I've almost become a government person, and I am in this case, Ghar Wapsi is difficult. Seems difficult, but I have already kind of transitioned from government back to on the other side of the table. So to begin with, yes, I've been very fortunate to work with government at multiple levels and in different kind of arrangement also. So I've worked as a Gandhi Fellow, I've worked as a researcher, as a consultant, and then I have also come on the other side of the table where I've worked within the government and I've had some kind of financial as well as decision making authorities, and that has really those were the times when I felt that the whole empathy discussion, I could feel that if, I just wish that people who are interacting with me now that I'm on the other side are actually having that kind of empathy, because I'm literally facing what the other government officers go through. And every time I used to sign a financial paper, I used to feel that I'm signing my death warrant. I don't know where it's gonna go and how it's gonna impact. But then, as Manmohan also said, if the intentions are right, and you are able to navigate the system in that way, because system does have a lot of scope for navigation and a lot of scope for doing things that we really want to do. People from outside may feel that it's rigid and schemes are set and the funds are very aligned. But then I feel that while working with government departments, that there's a lot of scope for innovation. There's a lot of scope for moving around and doing some kind of negotiation. And that's where I used to feel that I really used to look for partnerships. I really used to look for collaborations, because government does have the machinery, does have the mandate, but might not have the kind of resources that are needed for that large scale impact. Even if you look at within the tribal department that I worked with, we had a population of around 10 million tribal population in Maharashtra, and we had around 20,000 employees. Per thousand, we have just 2 employees to work with, and that employee is you have to think about education, healthcare, livelihoods, everything, anything and everything that's related to tribal are kind of is kind of responsibility of that department. So as Manmohan also mentioned about the convergence, and that's what has worked really well on the ground. So wherever we felt that there's a scope of convergence and there's a scope of partnerships within the departments also, because obviously if we are doing working in tribal areas, and if we could converge the Manrega, or if we could converge the Forest Rights Act, a lot of work could get done on the ground. But then also convergence among the civil society organizations. And while working with government, I realized that the convergence is equally difficult within the CSOs as well. We may say that everyone is talking about collaboration, everyone is talking about participation, but how much are CSOs actually partnering or converging at the ground level?
Yeah. Ishrat, if I could come in there, right? In fact, there was a question from Devanshi on just this, which is there are different services given by different NGOs, but like what we've been saying, the citizen is one. So even if we were to look at what are opportunities for NGOs to collaborate perhaps on a domain, or actually just that individual, and see how does it all add up for the individual, what are some examples that we've seen that we can learn from? And this could be both to Ishrat and Manmohan. Since you were talking about it, I thought I would just bring back Devanshi's question.
No, that's actually a very good question. I did saw that question, and I was I was wondering that one approach is that you go with a product to a government and you say that this is my product and this is what I have been doing for past 20 years and this is what I would like to sell you. That's the approach that a lot of CSOs have. Whereas there are organizations who literally work on the ground level, who are literally sitting in the district's block as well as at the village level, and they are the ones who have that kind of view. They are the ones who are actually talking about collaborations, convergence at that ground level, and then kind of trying to drive that. And I think this whole convergence piece has been picked from the ground, because we have seen that working, we have seen that happening. But can all the organizations work at the village level? Can all the organizations work on this convergence? Might not be possible, because as we were discussing earlier also, that everyone or every organization has an expertise in certain area. They understand certain complexities more because they have worked, because they have understood, they have listened, right? So obviously they would like to focus on that, but then there has to be an appetite for collaboration on the ground, which I feel that coming from the government side, I feel is lacking within the government as well, and as well as within the CS. And Manmohan, if you would like to give this.
Yeah, so our logos and egos keep changing, sometimes logos become ego and egos become logo at individual level and organization level and also at the sector level. So that's the reality, unfortunately. And in social sector, it's more than the corporate. That's my limited understanding. But in the corporate, it is very clear that you're working for a profit, right? And you say very clear efficiency model. Here, it's not as clearly defined. What is the profit equivalent here? Of course, the outcome, learning outcome, health outcome, you can, for a conceptual framework, you can claim that it is there, but it is not as simple. So we talk a lot about value system, but when it comes to practicing, I think we fail. And here, I think there are a lot of supply than the demand, right? When NGOs are being started, it is not thought कि मेरा white space क्या है, and therefore what value I will bring. It is start मैं कर सकता हूँ. I'm a citizen and I can do it. And that's why there is no database. Slowly we are trying to create database. Different sources will tell you that how many NGO exist in India, right? And there has been many debate that how many NGOs are there. So this is the context, and I think the collaboration among CSOs, there are some good examples for sure. There are many which has not worked, but there are good examples. And I think during COVID, there are 5-6 amazing examples, right? That how people, irrespective of you are in education or health or water, domain-based NGOs, everybody came for one cause. So I think when it worked, when there is a crisis in India, it has worked during cyclone in Odisha, right? It has worked during multiple crisis time. Gujarat earthquake, it has worked. You can, still go and hear those stories that how people came together, right? Food distribution, when you have to serve, it goes beyond, right? You can't even define through framework. But when you have to think about future, 5 years, 10 years, and start aligning, because we like it or not, this is a capitalist world, right? You need money. Money play role. And then again in NGOs, there are large NGOs like multinational, and there are very small NGOs. 2 lakh budget. That person doesn't have a voice on the table, right? And therefore, we have created hierarchy.
Hmm.
So I think the question is that what is needed, and therefore what is the role as an entire sector? If we do not come together and start these conversations, not just once and twice, but also on regular basis, this problem may not be solved.
Hmm.
So we have choices. We can live as is with belief that Ishrat is doing good work, I'm doing good work, Archana is trying great. All three are needed. Let's coexist. We have learned that much to say good thing on the face, even if I'm feeling bad. Uh, and let's let's continue like that. Other option is let's try at least 3
Yeah.
out of 10 can come
Yeah.
together. And there has been a couple of models like that in the
Yeah.
collaborative. The multiple collaboratives are coming up.
In fact, one of the questions that has come in also, Ishrat and Manmohan, and you may have seen it, is this person who's from an NGO who's working, coming from the, I will read out the question, coming from my work with ICDS and Health Department of Mumbai, I see that NGOs are called for collaboration when some agenda becomes a top priority for the system. They usually do not go with a systematic intervention for a period of time. So how does it work? Do we need to change our plans to serve the government agenda at that point of time, especially when we know that for many, many small NGOs, it's the CSR funding, which comes with KRAs and it's for a year, maximum 2 years. What are perspectives?
Uh, so again, there was one district where our team were deployed to do education work, but the team was called by the highest in the government, saying that तुम लोग सब ये छोड़ के ISO certification करना है ये particular community का. Now our team knows nothing about ISO, doesn't know उसका full form क्या है, because that team is education, but that's the need. Now the question is, they said that हमें पता नहीं है कि नहीं मैं बताऊंगा करना क्या, बट सब छोड़ो यही करना है, because this is the priority of that individual, right? So what do? You have choice. Every time we have choices to make. We cannot blame that person. We chose to spend time on that. You're saying that this is the pain point for that individual. Work on this. But are we going to become ISO certification organization? No. Are you spending 100% of your time on that? No. But can you spend 20% of time? Yes. Please do that. Because that is the need. That's how you will understand the individual, the system, the team, their dynamics. So we did that ISO certification. Our team were deployed in election. Some of the work for election. Do we know even E for election? No. Do we do election work? No. But in one particular geography, one particular officer is asking you to do some support because that is needed. You do that. That's not the main job. That is not the those are, side, you're doing 5-10% of something which is needed. Now the question is, when government asks you, saying, please come and do training of ICDS supervisor. 3 दिन की training है, ये subject है, करो. Again, you have choice. You can say no and come back. Right? When you say no, you have to also deal with the consequences of no. So are you prepared for that? Do that and utilize that time to help understand that this is one activity which will not lead to transformation. Build some relationship through that. You may have done in the past, right, already, and it is not working, then you can say no. So I think, taking the choices are critical, right? Instead of judging that particular incident without investigating that why is this the situation.
Definitely. Thank you, Manmohan. Ishrat, I'm going to come back to you and also bring in Sami's question. You spoke a lot about how, that sometimes we have these myths about this is how government is, this is how government is, and all of that is perhaps just a myth, right? And so for you in your journey, what are some myths that got busted? I know you spoke about how you've seen one of the things is that, some of the government people that the myth is that people are not perhaps working as hard and there's not enough innovation. So one of the questions was also around what are some examples that you've seen around innovation? It could be other myths also that got busted for you, but innovation was something that came up specifically that you've seen within the company.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for that question, Archana. And I think I would add there that, people do talk about lack of accountability also, lack of autonomy also within the government, and also slow functioning of the government. And I must say, for some reason, I feel crisis does the trick. So when we are in crisis, we are collaborating, we are listening, we are trying to build that trust. When we are in crisis, we are also our delivery time, like the kind of work government has done, say in COVID itself, be it vaccination or managing those lockdowns and everything. It's a huge amount of work that has gone in, and the response time has been very low, and there has been a lot of innovation also at that time. What both government and civil societies have to understand is we are in constant crisis, 24/7. There doesn't have to be a COVID to for the collaborations to happen, and that has to work on both sides. And I do have a very good example. So our two organizations that work with tribal department, they were both working on health, and just because the logo of one was bigger than the other one during the launch, there was a huge conflict. And we had to kind of create a middle ground, and we had to say, okay, then we'll change the geographies completely. So this organization will work on the west, this side of Maharashtra, and this organization will work on the other side, because collaboration didn't work at all. And both the organizations were very well intended. But the moment COVID hit, we all kind of came together. So there was one organization which was working as a war room and taking the responses from the citizens, and there was another who was running the ambulances throughout this state. So that's what I'm trying to say, that the crisis has been the driver, but I'm trying to say that crisis is there throughout, and that's why collaborations have to work across all the time, 24/7. And maybe both have to kind of innovate how we collaborate.
Yeah. Any examples of partnership outside? And I'm thinking crisis itself is a spectrum, right? There's the COVID crisis, and then there's the everyday crisis. What we're also seeing is that sometimes collaboration and synergies happen a little more easily during crisis. What are some other examples that you've seen close up, and both Ishrat and Manmohan, because I personally know from the decade in the sector that there are such fantastic people in the government, both across the political people as well as the bureaucrats. What are some examples that you've been part of that keeps you inspired, and particularly around collaboration, change, innovation during non-crisis timings, right? Because I think one of the things we hear from our alumni and people who work with the government is that for one such example of what's working, there are potentially so many examples of when it's not working. And so what does it take to almost keep a ear and to keep an eye for identifying these things that are working, and how do we keep remembering them? So any examples that you'd like to share?
I think collaborations and partnerships will work only if there is trust and there is value. And value, trust gets created when you have added value. As Manmohan was giving examples of how, the whole relationship is not about having tea and coffee with the officer, but then going beyond what is the value that you bring in. So even CSOs will not collaborate until unless they see a value in the other. And so far while working with the government, I have felt that wherever we have seen that the organization is bringing the value, and they bring in value only when they listen. They listen to the challenges and the problems that we feel that are important. Obviously, you can highlight you have identified 5 key areas to work, but we think there are 2 more areas that can be added. Obviously, you have worked on ground, you have done that kind of thinking, which is lacking in government, because we do not have think tanks within the government departments. Every time we are working on files and taking action, but there's very little scope of thinking. If you are able to do that thinking for the government and bring those insights, I have always felt that those collaborations have worked. While I was working in the tribal department, also we had created a think tank within the department. We had around 50% of the employees were government, and rest of the 50% were consultants and young people working with us. And that's what we were trying to do for the department, that we were listening to the department, we were doing some work on the ground, getting the challenges, and then having those conversations with the organizations that where can you bring in value. So I think it's all about value and trust goes both ways. Trust by the CSOs towards the government that yes, government will do, and there are good people there as well. And then trust from the government side also, that not all the NGOs are only making documents, churning out documents, and they do this much and write this much. So trust on both sides really well.
Definitely. And Manmohan, can I bring you in? In fact, there's a related question from Dhruva's end, right? On the crisis and non-crisis, on long-term focus areas like health or education, how do you work with the government? Because it seems like the collaboration, these are more during crisis time. So what have you seen around how things come together, and what are some examples you're inspired by during non-crisis timings?
So I think there are many examples which has worked. If you go back in the history from independence, there are many examples how people have come together, even in non-crisis. And I'll give you some recent example. RCRC is one of the recent examples, which has started in COVID, but it continued. Rural community response for COVID. Initially, there are about 60 livelihood organizations, but now there are health, there are education. We recently, I'm part of that collaborative, recently launched the Rural Vulnerability Report. There are work going on research, on strategy, on advocacy, things like that. So you can look at that as one collaborative, which is futuristic, not about crisis. It began in crisis, but going beyond that. There is a life skill collaborative to build a tool in India. How do you assess compassion? How do you assess empathy for children? There are no scientific tool in the world. Today, that collaborative is established for last 2.5 years, almost 3 years. They are producing good around what can be done. Multiple organizations are there. So again, you can look at that as in collaborative. There are Northeast collaborative. There are organizations coming together in Northeast for a single goal, that how Northeast development happened. There are Bihar collaborative. The organization in Bihar have come together, and this is again futuristic, right? About 20-25 organizations have come together and thinking through about Bihar, right? All agenda, right? There are proper cadence, there are meetings, there are learning sessions, all that. There is a Aspirational Bharat Collaborative, which I presented in the beginning. This is at the last mile, right? There are many collaborative. I think collaborative has become touch for last 2-3 years. Now the question is it only name, or is it going beyond the name? That I think, people who are listening also, I would request you, urge you, if you believe in this, I think the only thing we can do, what is it that I can do better? Build the collaboration. That required me to take off my shoes first before I use other shoes, right? So taking off my shoes, which is my behavior, my habits, will be difficult. Once I do that, then, we can build a collaboration.
Thank you so much. We have a very interesting question from someone who's not shared their name, which is, what would you suggest to someone who has more than 20 years of work experience in the social sector and is now looking to join active politics? What are your views? And the person is keen to hear from both of you. Is it worth it, benefits, risks, etc.?
Please join. We will come and our work will be easier. A minister बन जाओ तो और अच्छा है. I think, see, what is politics? Unfortunately, politics has become negative word. Politics, manipulation, these words, if you have a right intent, these are amazing tool in the service of people. So please join politics. Because what are NGO sector doing? Politics of change. What are we doing? It's a politics of change only. This is not electoral politics, right? So if you have experience and you have courage that I'm going to do this, then I salute you already, right? That you have courage to express this. How many of young people or how many of people who are willing to get into that, saying that I'm going to do it and I will try my best to solve it. So thanks for sharing that. I'm happy to meet you, maybe.
So there is an aspiring politician here. You should tell us your identity. You've been anonymous enough. We are all curious about who this is, but you've heard that from Manmohan. Ishrat, what are your views?
Actually, what Manmohan said is absolutely right. We are political in all our approaches. Everything that we are doing, we are being, the moment we pick up an agenda, and that's why we are there, right? We are picking up an agenda. That means we are doing, we are trying to change something, and that's what politics is all about. So definitely come and maybe I'll vote for you as well. And yeah, that's all from my end.
Thanks, Ishrat. We're almost at time, and so I'd love to open up the final space to hear from both of you on. We started this discussion to be able to capture experience, lessons, whatever we can in the 90 minutes that we had on working with the government. We've chatted about starting with the Aspirational Bharat Collective, zoomed out a little bit on government partnerships, what has been Manmohan's journey like, and then what we see as the learning promise, the journey of the Gandhi Fellows. And Ishrat, we've had the privilege of listening to you and your journey and how your views are, and taken different questions. Anything else that you'd like to share with our attendees today on working with the government? It could be either anything. It could be. I don't want to say gyan. So anything.
Ankur, can you put the slide, the second
Yes.
one? Sarkar and
Yes.
Samaj. I think our deep belief and understanding is that government has money, government has mandate, and government has magnitude, which no one else on this planet can have. So if you believe this, I think this is extremely critical for solving the citizens' problem. And broadly, Samaj is loosely used here. Samaj is not just NGO. Samaj has many, many other players. But this is for civil society sector, is that if you are able to bring expertise required to solve that specific problem, which you can, right? And the purpose is to enable government, right? By a lot of innovation, enterprise and things like that, there is chance that we will achieve the well-being of citizen at scale. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Wow.
I'll just finish in 30 seconds. So I would, as Manmohan said, government has the mandate, the machinery, as well as the resources. And I would like to answer to the first question that you had asked, like someone wants to transition. I think the mandate is there, the machinery is there in some shape, and the resources is where the government lacks a lot, be it financial, be it human resource. And the moment you have decided to transition, I think you are adding to that resource, and your value will start once you have understood the challenges and you have decided on working, and then after multiple burnouts also you continue to be in that system. I think, yes, that would be the valuation that you as an individual can have, and obviously you will be working on multiple initiatives across your life. So that is another level of valuation.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Ishrat and Manmohan. It's been an absolute delight to unpack some of these, and I will say that we've been having a few calls offline as we set up for this discussion, and yet it's been such a provocation in terms of really at the end of it, why do we want to do this, right? Why do you want to partner with the government? What are our intentions? Do we believe in the partnership with the government as a way of real sustainable change? And then that all the skills and the structures and the things will follow. Very, very rich lessons from your experiences, and love the way those insights were culled out, both completely rooted in what you've seen, as well as lessons from both what's worked as well as what's not worked. Thank you so much again for joining us, Manmohan, and Ishrat, to you too, for really coming and giving us the inside views on how has it been to work with the government. Really, really grateful on behalf of all of us.
Thank you. Grateful to each one of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Manmohan. Thank you, Ishrat. Thank you, everyone, for attending.